Well, all right, well, thank you. We'll stay on the region then. Yes, sir.
Tammy, you just mentioned that your goal is to stop the war and to let the humanitarian aid get inside Gaza, and this is, I believe, the goal of everyone else. Mm-hmm. But according to the UN, Israel stopped aid from going through the crossing 20 days now, consecutively. This is the longest since October 7th, and this happened before the renewed airstrikes now. So there was no military operations in the region that prevent aid from going in. Do you feel that this is a collective punishment for Palestinians in Gaza to force Hamas to give some concessions, and is this acceptable?
Well, when you're asking me if I feel something, obviously I'm not going to go into a soliloquy of what I feel. What I can tell you is I also won't speak about a hypothetical or a separate report of what has happened with Israel. You would need to ask the Israeli government about if something occurred that you believe occurred or want clarity on. I don't speak for the Israeli government or for their prime minister. I speak for the U.S. State Department that has an interest in it. But you're asking a question we probably could discuss over dinner. But that's not a question for this podium or for what we are discussing here. What we do know, there are certain things that are facts of the matter, is that Hamas has put Israel and the world and the Gazan people in this position because of the madness, the savagery that they decided would be a good thing to do. I don't know what they thought would occur, but it perhaps is not what has occurred, which is a unity around the world after we saw that atrocity on October 7th. What we also, though, have done for everyone affected as a global issue, certainly first the Gazan people, the Israelis, etc., but as a global unified effort, is to stop the carnage. It's a meat grinder. It's people being used by others who just seem to certainly they're not focused on peace at the end. It is Hamas who needs to be asked certain questions about why this continues, because this has been their choice. There has been elements that have been agreed upon, other steps that the world came together to facilitate that the United States was committed to, and they still abandoned it. Idan Alexander, when we talk about hostages who have been released or killers of Americans who've been extradited, there is an American who is still being held. The bodies of the dead being held. That is what is in front of us. This is what needs to be stopped. And that is what we're committed to. Yes, sir. With the glasses there in the back. No, right, the gentleman in front of you, sir. Yeah.
So thank you. Daniele Compatangelo for Italian LA7.
Yes.
A question still about the meeting.
Thank you.
If you confirm the meeting with the Israeli and the Americans next week here at the State Department and the White House, and if so, about Iran is going to be. That's from a report on Axios. So can you, if it's true, can you give us some insight?
Nice ending phrase there.
Yeah, can you give us some insight of what we're going to see?
Well, no. If this is at the White House, as
and
you
also
suggest,
the State Department.
Well, I can't tell you what's going to happen at the White House, and I won't be confirming any meetings in this regard. All right. Now you're ready, right? Let's do it.
Thank you, Tammy. You got questions about this on Monday. It will have been almost a week since there was the announcement about termination of funds to US AGM broadcasters such as Voice of America and other grantees. As a senator, Secretary Rubio was supportive of the US grantee broadcaster Radio Free Asia. He protected it from cutbacks in the past. Does he want to revive the funding for Radio Free Asia, which broadcasts into countries like China, Cambodia, and Vietnam? And is he aware that due to the funding termination, a number of the journalists who work for Radio Free Asia are potentially could face deportation back to countries like China and Vietnam, where they may face imprisonment as a consequence of the reporting work that they've done for the US government by working for this outlet? And the same goes for Voice of America journalists, who also risk deportation back to countries such as Russia, Myanmar, Belarus, China, and Vietnam. Do you have a comment?
Well, I did have that question, and I have the question out to the Secretary. It's something that I'm following up with as well. It has been a story, understandably. You're interested in the answers to this. So I'm going directly to him. It's He's a busy guy, but as I'm going to continue to look for that from him. What I can tell you also, though, is that we're reducing, clearly, he was elected in large part to reduce the federal bureaucracy, right? It's about waste and fraud, mismanagement. This is something that has to occur. And in any dynamic, there's going to be actions and tough decisions that have to be made. Many of us personally also have to go through that when you're looking at a budget. The president continues to take action to ensure the whole of the United States government, including executive branch agencies, are in line with the administration's policy priorities. And I've said before, and I have to keep saying, is that many things are fluid. And it's why it's good why you're here and why now we're doing this, 3 days a week. But also when we address the issue, as I asked about the issue of visas, there are people who are reporting certain things, and like in any situation, if you're in the United States and you have to leave, you can also apply for asylum. If you are in a situation where you believe you're returning to your home country, puts you at significant risk, we have clearly procedures where you can apply for asylum, and that is certainly if someone is coming from that workplace or some other situation, that's something that people can do. If you have a visa, and every situation is different. That's why we don't discuss individual visa dynamics. But if someone is here and it is a work visa, and their employment is ended, there is a period of time. It's like any other visa dynamic for anyone who holds a visa. And you can learn about that at state.gov. You can there's a whole host of people that can help you. And I would guess if you're here on a work visa, that was probably a complicated, semi-complicated procedure. And so you're aware of these things. And so this is what is obvious for anyone in this kind of a situation, especially for those worried about the nature of reporting or a dynamic where they're concerned about returning. There are options like that, and that, again, is a very basic situation for everyone in that kind of a situation. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Tammy. I'll follow up on Iran very quickly, then I'll move to Ukraine, if you please indulge me.
Sure.
You start off highlighting some of the tools in your toolkit on Iran sanctions. I want to ask about a particular sanction law. There's a law of the land, which is called the Mahsa Act, which requires the administration to target Iranian leadership for their gross human rights violations. Is this administration willing to implement the Mahsa Act?
Is this administration what?
Willing to implement the act.
Well, I'm not. That would take me knowing what their thoughts are or discussing what diplomatic considerations are, issues that I'm certainly not going to speculate on. That's a hypothetical for the most part, and I can't do that. Yes.
If I may, very quickly, Tammy, on Ukraine, I was hoping you could fill us in on the delegation is headed to Saudi Arabia. I know one of them is...
Wait, you're going to have so maybe his mic can come up. Start again.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe a little bit more slowly, too.
Absolutely. I was hoping you could fill us in on the delegation is headed to Saudi Arabia to discuss Ukraine. Michael Anton from this building is a part of the team. Anyone else you could mention, please? And also any reaction to overnight assault on Ukraine?
Well, I'm not going to speak about the particular individuals on the teams. All right? It is senior officials. It's not principals. But that's what we have. I think it's inappropriate to discuss certainly personnel, let alone senior officials who might be on a negotiation team. It's a dynamic that clearly we'll get the results from. We'll see the details, and then we can make some assessments about perhaps who was involved and where we go next. All right, now at the end of the row here, yes, ma'am. Go ahead, please.
My question is on Afghanistan. After 4 years, for first time, American delegate traveled to Kabul yesterday and discussed with the Taliban senior leader. My question is, does it mean the new diplomatic approach from the United States towards Taliban? And can you clarify, aside that releasing American hostage, what other topics were discussed in this meeting with Taliban?
Well, I wasn't at the meeting with the Taliban. Even if I was, I wouldn't give you any details. If there was, certainly these are diplomatic considerations, and we have what the main end result, which I think is the North Star of this framework, is that an American is home. So that's what we have to care about. In the meantime, I think that there's a general series of issues that we're dealing with, but encouraging you to think about the nature of the subjects that are in front of us, that we're working on, that are steps in longer processes to not just keep Americans safe and get Americans home, but to change the condition of the world that's in front of us. All right, all the way in the back, gentleman, the white shirt. Yes, please.
Thank you. Going back to the issue of Voice of America and like global engagement media, the State Department was very active fighting disinformation, especially through the Global Engagement Center. They were very important in unveiling Russian state disinformation campaigns, Portal Combat and others.
Sure.
In the previous administration. I wanted to ask you if the Global Engagement Center is still active. How concerned are you that RT, Sputnik News, all that Russian disinformation outlets are going to be countered now without American state media to counter their narratives and what they have been doing in the past years? Thank you.
Well, that is a stretch here, and I've mentioned this on Wednesday, that we do have a lot of very familiar structures and systems that are changing. And that doesn't mean that the work stops. It means that the efforts and the outreach and the engagement will look different, perhaps. But our values and what has informed the United States of America from day one through all of this time hasn't changed. And it's why we remain the greatest and the strongest country in the world. And we can have these conversations. But while we're in the process of change in this fashion, it's the change of an administrative structure regarding taxpayer dollars as we assess, is the money we're spending, does it align with the values, with the agenda of the Trump administration that the American people overwhelmingly voted for to get things done? And it doesn't mean burning the house down. It means looking at how we can make it better, what needs to be changed, what needs to be reformed, so that we can spend money in a smarter, more efficient way. So yes, certain entities, certain buildings will be housed differently. Certain attitudes will perhaps change. But the goals and the attitude and the values of the United States not only haven't changed, they've been highlighted by the election of Donald Trump, a man who has brought back the notion of the idea that any American should be forgotten, that there should be no forgotten man or woman, that we have a responsibility to the world, but not in participating and facilitating wars, in doing things new and in a different way, and that includes within the structure of this government and how we apply our values. So I would argue that this is not it's not a retreat. Quite the opposite. This is a preparation to continue the work in a smarter, stronger way. All right, we'll take one more question. Yes, Alex.
Thank you so much, Jamie. If I could just follow up on my colleagues' questions, could you take us through the choreography of this weekend at these technical talks? Is it over multiple days? How are they dividing up the two different countries? And then I'll have a follow-up on the Taliban question as well.
Yes, this is held very close. This is all very serious, and so I'm not going to answer the details of how it's unfolding. When this is complete, I will pursue the nature of getting some answers and the specifics for that for you. And I do believe one thing I can say is, like with everything with President Trump and Secretary Rubio, things happen quickly. So I would suspect that we will have answers on this very soon.
Thank you. And then in terms of just the Taliban, and that was an unusual meeting. It wasn't just Adam Bowler who was in charge of getting hostages out, but he was joined by Zalmay Khalilzad. Does he have a formal role within the Trump administration? And Palestinian-American billionaire Bashar al-Masri was also there. Can you clarify both their roles?
Yes. There is no one with an official government role, the gentleman you mentioned. This is certainly not a negotiation. There was no swap made. There was no thing given to accomplish this. As a matter of fact, other hostages from Afghanistan were released on the day of Trump's inauguration, so a little bit afternoon on the 20th. So I think this is, in addition to terrific envoys who know how to handle this situation, It is also the impact of a strong America led by a man who is known to do what he needs to do to accomplish his mission. And that is, I think, often an unusual situation. So I hope that answers your question.
Why were they there if they don't have official?
Oh, well, I can't speculate on that. That's something, though, at some point. But I certainly am not in a position to speculate about why they were. Yes, ma'am. The white jacket, and then that's going to be us. That's going to be it for today. Sure.
After the Istanbul Mayor İmamoğlu's arrest this week, there are indications that Turkish government is now canceling the main opposition party's latest party convention and will appoint a trustee for the main opposition. What is the U.S. government's reaction to this? Because there are opinion reports mentioning that this operation came right after President Trump and Erdogan's phone call. Is this still internal legal process matter in your view?
What's your outlet again, by the way?
Halk TV, Turkish.
Oh, great. Welcome aboard. Well, I can tell you a few things. First, we're following the events in Turkey, as you might imagine, including the reported detention of the Istanbul mayor and a large number of municipal employees, journalists, and other individuals. We would refer you to the government of Turkey for comments on internal judicial matters. And of course, it is worth reiterating that it's important that Turkey protect the freedoms and human rights of all of its citizens, consistent with the country's constitution and in line with our shared values and democratic traditions.
That was for the corruption charges mayor facing, of course, but how about appointing a trustee for the main opposition? Do you have anything on that?
Well, if that is going to come up, it's not, again, my place to discuss it or to surmise or to hypothesize either. I think that's going to be it for today. All right, everybody, we will be back on Monday. We will have our briefing on Monday and Friday next week. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for being here. It's a beautiful day out there. Enjoy it.